Welcome back to the deep dive, everyone. Today, we're going to be untying a pretty big knot, one that's fascinated people, seekers mostly, for centuries. You ready for this? Enlightenment.
Enlightenment, yeah.
Big topic. It is a big topic, but specifically, we're going to be looking at it through the lens of the Mahamudra tradition of Tibetan Buddhism, which might surprise you a little bit, actually, in how it approaches this whole idea.
Yeah, it's true. Mahamudra kind of flips the script on how we usually think about enlightenment.
It does.
So, instead of seeing it as this distant goal, this, mountaintop experience that's really hard to reach.
Right, you got to climb, climb, climb.
Exactly. It says, hey, the truth is already here inside you right now. So in this deep dive, we're going to really try to unpack that by exploring the 3 stages of enlightenment in this tradition, which are basis, path, and fruition.
Okay, I like it. And we're diving deep today with excerpts from danbrownenlightenment.txt. I will say, one of the things I find so fascinating about these writings, and honestly a little puzzling, is this whole concept of nirvana without staying. Have you ever heard that phrase before?
I have, yeah. Nirvana without staying.
It's a bit of a head scratcher.
It's a paradox. It sounds contradictory, right? Nirvana, you think like you've arrived, you've reached the destination, but without staying. It's like, wait a minute.
What does that even mean?
Yeah, but that's the beauty of Mahamudra, right? It points to this idea that enlightenment isn't about escaping the world or reaching some static state of bliss, like you're done, you've arrived. It's about recognizing a truth that's always been present within us, and then, here's the key, embodying that wisdom in the midst of our everyday messy lives.
Okay, see, now you've got me hooked. That's what I want to understand. So let's start then with this idea of basis enlightenment. This is like stage 1 of this journey.
Basis enlightenment, exactly.
And I love how, our source material uses this analogy of a beggar who's unknowingly been carrying around a treasure, like this whole time, to illustrate this.
Yeah, that's one of the most powerful metaphors for basis enlightenment, right? Like you have this beggar, and they represent all of us, right?
Right.
Walking around with this incredible treasure, this priceless gem. And that treasure is our own awakened nature, our true self. But here's the thing. We're totally oblivious to its value. We don't even know it's there.
It's like we're walking around with a winning lottery ticket, but we've, never bothered to check the numbers.
Exactly. And we're so caught up in our thoughts, our to-do lists, our anxieties, all that stuff, that we miss the profound truth that's always been right here within us.
It's like we're blinded by all that mental noise.
Yes, blinded by the noise. And so basis enlightenment, it's that aha moment, that sudden realization, like the beggar finally looking down and realizing, holy smokes, I've been carrying this treasure this whole time.
This is it. This is what I've been looking for.
It is. It's the recognition that our true nature, the essence of who we are, is already perfect, already whole, already free.
So it's not about creating something new or becoming someone different, but rather removing the veils that have kept us from seeing what's always been there.
Precisely. It's like, taking off a blindfold or stepping out of a dream state and realizing, oh, wow, this is how it actually is.
That's a great way to put it. So it's not about, adding more to ourselves. It's about letting go of what's not really us in the first place.
Exactly. And the source material talks about this in terms of moving from a state of constant doing, all that mental activity.
Right, the hamster wheel.
The hamster wheel of the mind, exactly.
Yeah.
Moving from that to a state of inactivity.
Inactivity. That, I don't know, that sounds a little, inactive. Like, how do we get anything done from a place of inactivity? How does that lead to a more enlightened way of being?
Yeah, no, inactivity can sound a little misleading. It doesn't mean we just become passive or, literally do nothing. It's not about shutting down our minds completely.
Okay, good. Because I kind of like my mind.
And you should. It's a valuable tool. But inactivity in this sense, it's more about freeing the mind from its usual patterns, like all that grasping and clinging to thoughts and emotions and that constant need to identify with them, to let them define who we are.
So it's about creating some space, some breathing room between us and all that mental chatter.
Exactly. It's recognizing that we are not our thoughts. We're not our emotions. There's a deeper, more spacious awareness that can observe all those things without getting swept away.
So we're not trying to stop the waves from coming. We're learning to surf.
Love that. Learning to surf the waves of our minds. That's a perfect analogy. And the source material uses another great analogy, a visual one. Imagine like a rope really tightly bound around a big sheaf of straw.
Okay, got it. Yeah.
So think of inactivity in this context as untying that rope. What happens? Well, the straw naturally loosens up. It spreads out.
Right. That it can finally breathe.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what happens in basis enlightenment.
Yep.
We start to loosen the grip on all those limiting beliefs, those stories we tell ourselves, and that allows for a much more expansive experience of reality.
So it's not about forcing ourselves to be different. It's about recognizing this inherent freedom that's already present within us, that's always been there. We just have to get out of our own way.
Exactly. And, that shift in perspective, that recognition, it can be incredibly liberating, but it can also be a bit disorienting at first.
I could see that.
Because think about it, the world itself hasn't actually changed, right? Your house is still your house. Your job is still your job.
Right. The laundry's still there.
Exactly. But you experience it all differently. There's this newfound clarity, a sense of spaciousness around everything.
It's like you've been wearing these blurry glasses your whole life, and then suddenly you put on a new pair, and it's like, whoa, everything is so much sharper, more vivid.
Precisely. You're seeing reality more clearly, less clouded by those habitual patterns of thinking and perceiving. And that's what sets the stage for the next stage of the journey, path enlightenment. But we'll save that for part 2.
Okay, so we've had our big aha moment with basis enlightenment, right? We've discovered the treasure, this true nature that we've been carrying around all along. But how do we actually integrate this understanding into our lives? How do we actually live from this place of, greater clarity and freedom?
That's the million-dollar question, right?
It is. That's where path enlightenment comes in, I think, right?
You got it. Path enlightenment. That's where the rubber meets the road, so to speak.
Love it.
You've glimpsed the treasure. Right. Now, path enlightenment, that's where we actually get to explore it, to really understand its depths. We learn how to take that treasure with us out into the world and not just, keep it hidden in our pockets.
Okay, yeah, make it practical because, life doesn't stop just because we've had this realization, right?
No, it doesn't. Actually, things might even get a bit more intense.
Oh, great. That's reassuring.
Well, think of it this way. Our source material uses this really interesting analogy for this stage, this path enlightenment stage, a mirage. Have you ever, seen a mirage out in the distance?
Oh, yeah, totally. Especially driving through the desert, right?
Exactly. Driving through the desert, you see those shimmering pools of water in the distance.
You think you're about to drive right into an oasis.
Right. And they seem so real, so tangible.
Yeah.
But, as you get closer, they disappear.
It's just a trick of the light.
Exactly. Just a trick of light. And that's what a lot of our thoughts, emotions, our perceptions, they're like mirages too. They seem so solid, so real. But path enlightenment is about seeing through those mirages of the mind. It's about recognizing that all that stuff, even though it feels so real, so important in the moment, it's actually fluid. It's ever-changing, just like those mirages in the desert.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So it's not about denying our experiences or pretending that our feelings aren't real, but it's more about changing our relationship to them.
Got it. We're not getting swept away by every little ripple in the pond of our minds anymore.
We're learning to watch those ripples without getting soaked, right?
Exactly. Cultivating this, detached awareness, right? Just observing those thoughts, those emotions, those sensations, without needing to cling to them or push them away, without letting them define us.
Okay, but that sounds really hard.
It's definitely a practice, but think about it. You wouldn't, chase after a mirage in the desert, would you? You know it's not real.
Well, no, I guess not.
Right. So in the same way with practice, we can learn to see the illusory nature of these mental formations, the thoughts, the emotions, without getting so caught up in their drama.
It's like we're learning to see them for what they are, which is, like you said, just passing mirages. Not the real deal. Okay, I'm with you so far, but, if we're not busy chasing mirages, what are we actually doing? What does this path actually look like?
Right. So it's called path enlightenment for a reason, right?
It's a journey.
Exactly. It's a journey. And our source material here outlines, 3 distinct stages within path enlightenment.
3 stages. Okay, hit me.
All right. Stage 1, meeting and destroying.
Meeting and destroying. Okay, that sounds a little intense.
It does, right. Then we've got stage 2, craving after.
Craving after. Okay, now we're talking about desire.
Oh, yeah. We'll get there. And finally, stage 3, emanation of nothing.
Okay, now we're getting really mysterious. Emanation of nothing.
Right. It's like each stage has its own, kind of cryptic title.
They do, but they also sound kind of cool. I'm not gonna lie.
They're intriguing, right?
All right, so let's break them down, starting with meeting and destroying. What are we meeting and destroying here exactly?
Okay, so imagine this. You're walking along a path, right? Pretty straightforward. And as you're walking, you start to encounter all these familiar faces.
Like old friends.
Yeah, some old friends, maybe some, not so welcome acquaintances.
Right, people you're hoping to avoid.
Exactly. So that's kind of what happens in this meeting and destroying stage. We come face to face with these deeply ingrained patterns that we have, right? Like thought patterns, emotional habits, reactive tendencies, all those things that have been kind of running the show for us, maybe for years.
Oh, yeah, like our default settings.
Exactly, our default settings. And here's the thing, we're not just intellectually understanding that they're there. In this stage, we're having a direct experience of them.
Okay, so we're getting real up close and personal with all of our stuff. But then, what does it mean to actually destroy these patterns? I mean, should I be worried? That sounds, I don't know, a little scary.
No need to worry. It's not about annihilation. It's not about, wiping the slate clean.
Okay, good.
It's more about recognition, Like, you see these patterns for what they are. They're impermanent. They're not personal. They don't define who you really are, even if they sometimes feel like they do.
So it's about creating some distance, right, between us and those patterns.
Exactly. Like recognizing the voice of a character on a TV show. You know that voice. You might even find it entertaining, but
you don't have to invite them over for dinner.
Exactly. You don't have to invite them to dinner. They can just keep doing their thing on the TV show, right, and you can watch or not. It's your choice.
So we're developing this healthy detachment. We're not letting these patterns, even the really familiar ones, kind of write the script of our lives anymore.
You got it.
Wow, emanation of nothing. Okay, I gotta say, that is a powerful way to describe that stage. It really does feel like at that point, you've climbed to this incredible vantage point, and the fire of wisdom, like we were talking about, has really cleared away so much. You can see clearly now. So if that's the culmination of path enlightenment, where do we even go from there? What's waiting for us in fruit enlightenment?
That's the really cool thing about this tradition. The journey doesn't just stop there. It's not like, okay, we're done. Time to pack up the tent, head back down the mountain. It keeps unfolding.
So no kicking back and relaxing after we reach the first peak, huh? No enlightenment retirement plan?
Nope, sorry. It's a dynamic process, always evolving. Even our source material really emphasizes this point, saying that even after we've gone through these 3 stages, the journey continues. It's about continuously refining our understanding and, I love this phrase, living in that state of nirvana without staying.
There it is again. Nirvana without staying. Okay, so it seems like a pretty big deal, this idea of not staying. It really does feel like the heart of this whole thing. But I gotta admit, it still feels a little bit mysterious.
I get it. It's one of those things you really have to experience to fully grasp. But we can certainly explore it a bit more.
Let's do that. And I mean, a good place to start would be with the term fruit enlightenment itself.
Okay, yeah, great place to start.
Because it does suggest that something is ripening, blossoming from this whole journey that we've been on. So what exactly are these fruits and how do they actually manifest, in our day-to-day lives? What difference do they actually make?
I love that question.
Yeah.
Because it brings it down to earth, right?
It does.
So think of the fruits as the qualities that naturally arise when we start to live from this place of awakened awareness. Things like wisdom, compassion, a deep sense of joy, a profound interconnectedness with everything around us. And the really important thing to remember here is that these qualities, they aren't things that we acquire like new gadgets or something.
Right, we're not adding more stuff to ourselves.
Exactly, we're not adding more stuff. It's more like we're uncovering, revealing these qualities that were always present within us, but maybe hidden beneath the surface. They're expressions of our true nature.
So it's not about transforming into some kind of superhuman or, suddenly becoming a saint overnight.
Right. Some people might think that's what enlightenment is, right?
Right.
But it's really more about allowing these qualities, these very human qualities, to shine through more brightly in everything we do and how we relate to ourselves and the world around us.
Okay. That actually makes me feel a little bit better. Less pressure to be perfect.
Good. You shouldn't feel pressure. Remember that analogy of the beggar who discovers the treasure?
Yeah, I love that analogy.
So if basis enlightenment is about discovering the treasure and path enlightenment is about, really understanding its value, then fruit enlightenment, that's about taking that treasure into the marketplace, into the messiness of our life and letting it benefit not just ourselves, but everyone we encounter.
So we're sharing the wealth, spreading the joy, so to speak.
Exactly. And, when we're talking about these qualities of wisdom, compassion, joy, interconnectedness, it makes me think about the 4 Buddha bodies.
Oh, yeah, right. You mentioned those earlier. Can you remind us what those are again and how they connect to this idea of, living an enlightened life?
Absolutely. The four Buddha bodies are a really helpful way to understand how this enlightened activity, this expression of our true nature, actually shows up in our lives in very real and tangible ways.
Okay, because it can be so easy to think of enlightenment as this very distant, abstract, kind of out there ideal.
Totally. And the four bodies ground it, they bring it down to earth.
I like that. Okay, so remind us again, what are these four bodies and how can we really connect them to this idea of, actually living an enlightened life right here, right now?
Okay, so we've got four. The first one is called the Dharma body, and this one represents like ultimate truth. It's unchanging, beyond form, kind of like the vastness of the sky. It encompasses everything.
Okay, so it's like the ground of being, the source from which everything arises.
You got it. Then we have the wisdom body, and this one embodies perfect knowledge, perfect insight.
Okay, so kind of like the wise sage who sees through all those illusions, all those mirages, and really understands how everything is interconnected.
Yes. Then we've got the enjoyment body, which embodies pure bliss and, importantly, radiates that joy outwards.
Okay, so this is the one who reminds us to find the joy in each moment, to approach life with a sense of like playfulness, gratitude, even when things are tough.
Yes, yes, yes. And then finally, we have the emanation body. And this one's really cool because this is the aspect of ourselves that's actively engaging with the world, rolling up our sleeves and saying, how can I help? How can I alleviate suffering? How can I share this wisdom that I've realized?
So this is really the embodiment of compassion in action, right? Someone who's not just talking about it, but actually living it out in the world.
Exactly. And, the really mind-blowing thing is that all of these qualities, these four Buddha bodies, they're aspects of ourselves, just waiting to be realized and expressed. Isn't that amazing?
It really is. And, it strikes me that this whole deep dive, this whole exploration of Mahamudra and these three stages of enlightenment, it really has been a powerful reminder that enlightenment isn't some, far off destination that only a select few can reach. It's a journey that we can all embark upon, regardless of our background, our beliefs, where we are in our lives.
I love that. I couldn't agree more.
And it starts, like we were saying, with simply recognizing the incredible treasure that's already within us, We learn to navigate the path with courage and clarity, and ultimately, we discover that the true joy lies in allowing the fruits of our practice to ripen, to blossom, and to benefit not just ourselves, but everyone and everything around us. It's a beautiful unfolding, wouldn't you say?
It really is. And that's the beauty of this nirvana without staying idea.
Yeah.
It never ends. There's always more to discover, more to explore, more to embody.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive today, maybe that's the question we can leave our listeners with. What treasures might you be carrying without realizing their true value? What mirages might be clouding your vision? And how can you, starting today, embody even a little bit more of that wisdom, that compassion, that joy of fruit enlightenment right here, right now, in your own unique and beautiful way?